Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia Treen, and welcome to my channel. Today we'll make the next addition to my storybook collection, this little kangaroo, inspired by our classic friends from 100 Acre Wood. Make her in tan and white, or in your own unique color combination. Just for fun, I made this one in shades of blue. I hope you'll make yours in whatever colors inspire you. And for mothers-to-be, my mushroom mouse tutorial makes a perfect roux. If you'd like die-cut pieces to make her, they'll soon be available in my Etsy shop. As of filming, I have a handful cut in Latte, which is what we'll be using today, but I still need to pack and list them. So stay tuned for those and many more die cuts to come for my designs. Today, I'll cover the step-by-step process, but if you're new here, check out my techniques tutorials. You can find links to them in the listing and in the cards above. They cover all the basics to get you started on knots, whip stitching, stuffing, and more. Okay, let's get started. Here are all the cut pieces: ears, head, body and arm, tail, belly and pouch. Here you can see I've pre-assembled a few steps to get us started. With a single strand of embroidery floss, I whip stitched the side head and body darts, the back body seam, the arms, and the top seam of the tail. To attach the pouch to the belly, we'll use an applique stitch around the legs and the bottom flap, and a running stitch around the pouch's sides. For a clean finish, make each stitch in 2 passes, back to front, then front to back. From back to front, around the legs and the bottom flap, catch the pouch's edge, then skim the edge with the needle as you pass through to the back side. Normally, I'd use some matching floss here, but white on white is hard to see, so I've used a contrasting color for visibility on camera. And I'll continue now up the pouch's side with a running stitch. Eventually, this stitch will be hidden in the seam that connects the belly to the side body. Make sure to use matching thread, keep its spacing small, and as close to the edge as you can. And as before, make each stitch in 2 passes. And finish with a knot on the back side. Then repeat on the opposite side of the pouch. Now let's get back to our partially assembled pieces. For the arms, I folded them in half and whip stitched the side seam, leaving the angled end open. To fill them, cut 1 12-inch pipe cleaner into 2 6-inch pieces, then fold each piece in half. These are longer than we'll need, but we'll cut them down before attaching them to the body. Slip the folded pipe cleaners into the arm tubes, then set them aside. Turn the tail so the top seam is inside. Then whip stitch the bottom seam on the outside. If you'd like more detailed instructions on stitch spacing, seam allowance, or tension, that's all covered in the techniques tutorial I mentioned earlier. For the head center seam, place the 2 side head pieces with right sides together, matching their darts. Then whip stitch from under the chin to just beyond the top head dart, leaving the back side and the neck hole open. Then, Turn the head to hide its center seam and dart stitching. Then whip stitch the back of the head on the outside. Now let's stitch the side body to the belly. Pin the pouch flat from the back side. Then match the belly and body with right sides together. I like basting before whip stitching here. Whip stitch the top curve of the foot, then up the side seam. The foot's too narrow to turn, so we'll stitch the bottom on the outside. Then turn the body right side out. The neck is very narrow, so a skewer here helps to push it through. Now that the body's turned, we can whip stitch the bottom seam of the feet. To wire the feet and neck, cut a 12-inch pipe cleaner in half and fold one end of each piece over about 1 inch. Then bind the folded ends tightly with floss. And finish with a square knot. Slip the cut end of one pipe cleaner through the body and out the neck. Then slide its bound end down into the foot. And repeat on the opposite side. Use a bamboo skewer or stuffing fork and small pinches of wool stuffing to fill the neck and chest firmly. Turning the body helps with even stuffing. As you fill the lower belly and haunches, use slightly larger pinches of stuffing and your fingers to add it in. As it continues to fill up, a felting needle helps compress the fibers, allowing you to add more wool and round out the haunches. When the bottom flap and body edges match nicely, use a baseball stitch to connect them, from the inner leg corner to the darts. Work the stitch like lacing a shoe, back and forth between the two edges, tightening every few stitches and ending at the darts. Fill below the bottom flap. Then fill any remaining gap to bring the stuffing up to the felt surface. Use a whip stitch to close the remaining bottom flap seams, leaving a bit at the very end open. Fold a 12-inch piece of pipe cleaner in half and slip the folded end into the tail. Stuff the tail with wispy pinches of wool so it fills but remains bendable. At the base of the tail, use a felting needle to flatten the fiber at the open end. Trim the pipe cleaners and fold down their ends to finish at about 1 inch. Then bind them tightly as you did for the feet. Before attaching the tail, trim off the triangle end from the bottom flap. Then snip up into the stuffing to make a pathway for the exposed pipe cleaner. For attaching tails and heads, I like to use 2 strands of floss for strength. A blind stitch, also known as a ladder stitch, is perfect for this. Here again, you'll want to tighten every few stitches, drawing in the thread so the edges tuck under and become hidden. Stuff the head firmly, rotating as you go to keep the shape symmetrical. The neck hole is small, so rather than closing the back seam first, as I did, you could fill it halfway, then close and finish stuffing afterwards. Either way, Take your time using small pinches of fiber to fill it firmly. For a nice rounded head, channel up into the stuffing with your snips and make a pathway, then add more fiber into its core. Next, trim one pipe cleaner at the neck and the other about a half an inch above, folding down and tucking the cut end into the neck hole. Snip up into the head to make a path, then insert the pipe cleaner into the head so it rests at the white peak of the belly. So I'm jumping in here from the future with my original sample, whose head has never been attached. After filming several versions of arm stitching with the attached head in my way, I remembered that the head had not been there the first time. So I recommend that you temporarily stick on the head to mark the proper arm placement. Then attach the arms with a blind stitch before permanently stitching on the head. Okay, back to our process. Cut the arm pipe cleaners so about 1/2 inch is exposed. Then trim their fluff with small scissors and bind them. Mark the arm placement with a pin 5/8 of an inch down from the neck. And enlarge the hole with a skewer, pushing up towards the head. Insert the first arm into its hole with the peak of the angle up and the stitching oriented down. Then repeat on the opposite side. Here, I'm using a 2-strand length of floss to blind stitch the arms to the body. I'm not sure if you can tell how awkward this was, but the head really got in my way. I'm really glad my future self could spare you from dodgy order of operations. So make sure to attach those arms before permanently attaching the head. And here I am again, my past self, carefree and armless, blind stitching on the head. But you, thankfully, are wiser now. I like to glue on the ears with a thick, quick-dry glue, like fast-grab tacky glue. You don't need much, so the point of a skewer or a toothpick is great for application. Dab the lower corner on the edge that curves inward and fold it at a 45-degree angle, leaving a tiny triangular pocket. Next, glue the flat edge and the pocket surface and apply the ear to the top of the head with the folded edge bisecting the dart. This should leave the ears sticking vertically upward. Before I mark the nose or mouth, I prepare the surface with a spritz of hairspray, let it dry, and then press the surface with the plate of my iron. I'm using a Derwent Inktense pencil for the nose in dark chocolate. If you use watercolor pencils, make sure to have a sharp point. Then dip the point into a dish of water to soften it and mark a small triangle-shaped nose. For the mouth, a sepia 005 micron pen makes a lovely fine line smile. And finally, her eyes. You can approach them in a variety of ways depending on the look you want. For the tiger in my storybook series, I used 4mm sew-in eyes, then, with a small brush and thinned paint, added the whites above. For the blue kangaroo, I used 3mm glass eyes, and gave her some whiskers as well. But for my classic kanga, I made printable paper eyes. After printing, I glazed them with glossy accents, clear dimensional medium, and then let them dry. It's good to make a few extra, just in case one gets a bubble or does not dry perfectly smooth. Carefully cut them out, then glue them in place with a fast-drying glue, like Fast Grab tacky glue. If you enjoyed this project, I hope you'll join me to create more from the collection. So stay tuned for more classic felt friends and tutorials to come. And if you love making felt animals, while away some stitching time by the riverbank with my book, Wind in the Willows Felt Friends. Okay folks, that's it for today. Stay tuned for more felt and craft tutorials. If you liked this video, you know what to do, and how to follow. If you'd like to visit my Etsy shop, become a Patreon supporter, or share a one-time tip on Buy Me a Coffee, you'll find links to all of those and my socials via my Linktree. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, happy stitching.